Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. My name is Annie, and today we're gonna take a look at the Touchnew alcohol brush markers. This is the 24 set of skin tone markers, and they sell at about $15 on AliExpress. I wasn't able to find them on any other site other than AliExpress, but you can find the link down in the description below. Just keep in mind they take a long time to ship. I think mine took about 2 weeks. It's worth mentioning that these markers are less than 50 cents per marker, which makes them even cheaper than the Ohuhu brush markers. Now let's see if they're worth the money, and if you should pick them up. The markers come in this neat little bag, similar to the Ohuhu markers, but I actually think this one looks and feels nicer. Also included in this pack are a free white gel pen and a dual tip fine liner. Both look and feel pretty cheap though. Let's take a look at the markers themselves. They have this oval shape to prevent them from rolling away. You can see on the caps the color name as well as the color number, but the actual marker isn't labeled. Like most other brands, they have a chisel tip on one end and surprisingly a brush tip on the other. Though I'm not sure how it will hold up, since it looks like it's made out of cheap felt and could fray pretty easily. Also, the brush tip feels pretty stiff, it doesn't bend very well. The blending ability is pretty standard. They don't perform as well as Ohuhu's or Copics, but it's good enough for me. The stiff brush tip makes it a bit difficult to blend them, but other than that, they work pretty well. The first bigger problem I've come across is the color range. The color range is pretty bad. There are many lighter skin tones, but not as many dark and middle tones. This becomes a problem later on if you want to color darker skin. But enough of that, let's test them out on an actual art piece. I've decided to sketch out a portrait of 3 girls, each with a different skin tone. I'm using the Ohuhu sketchbook paper and the mapped erasable colored pencil. Those are just some cheap colored pencil I picked up from Amazon, and they erase surprisingly well. Now, before I'm gonna continue talking about these markers, I want to take a few minutes to talk about this channel. As you probably can hear, this is my first voiceover, and English is not my first language, so I apologize for the accent, but I hope I get better the more I speak. I want to make more voiceover videos in the future, do some more reviews on art supplies, and maybe even do some collabs. I've always enjoyed watching voiceover videos and people talking about art supplies, so I want to make the same content. Now let's go back to the drawing. I usually approach my artworks a bit different than most other artists. I do my line out last, which makes the ugly stage much worse. Like you can see right now, coloring the dark skin looks really bad at the beginning, but trust me, it gets better. One problem I noticed while coloring, the markers tend to look pretty patchy at the beginning, and it takes a few layers to make them look good. But at the same time, if you do too many layers, it won't layer any other color. For the line art, I used my trusty old ballpoint pens in different colors. I bought those in a pack of 12 for about $1. I prefer using them over normal multiliners since they leave more room for mistakes and I can fix up the line art pretty easy. Since the color range of the darker skin tones is pretty bad, I used some colored pencils to darken the shadows and make her look a bit more alive. Now, since these markers are supposed to be a cheap alternative to the more expensive markers, I've decided to use only my very cheap supermarket colored pencils, instead of my fancy Polychromos. Since the markers are supposed to be a cheap alternative, so using other expensive art supplies wouldn't be true to the challenge. Now let's go to the girl on the left. She has a light peachy skin tone, coloring her was the easiest, since the pack includes lots of light skin tones. I just wished they had more middle tones as well as maybe a purple color for shadows. Getting an even tone with the lighter skin tones was way easier than with the dark tones. But that's quite normal for any alcohol markers. Again, for the darker shadows and some blush I used colored pencil, and for the line work I used my ballpoint pens. For the girl in the middle, I wanted her to have a tan skin tone, but that wasn't that easy, since there weren't many middle tones to choose from. I ended up giving her a much lighter skin tone than I wanted to. For the shadows, I tried to use the tip-to-tip method, so I could get a new middle tone. But it didn't work as well as I thought it would. Now she just looks like she has a cold. After doing the line art as well as some darker shadows and some blush with the colored pencil, I did some highlights with the white gel pen. I also used the black fine liner they included in the set to darken up some of the lines for the girl on the right. The white gel pen actually wasn't that bad. It wasn't as pigmented as I would like it to be, but it worked good enough. You will see in the close-up it didn't fully cover the lines. Now for the last step, I just colored the background in this light peachy color. Now for my final thoughts. I really didn't like the color range of this set. There were not enough middle or dark tones, so you couldn't make shadows or any other skin tone other than a light tone. Now the layering of these markers wasn't great either. Like I said in the beginning, if you didn't layer enough color, the tones would become patchy, but at the same time, if you would layer too much color, you couldn't just layer another color over this. Now keep in mind, this could be also a fault of me or the paper. It could be that the paper didn't take as much ink as it should be. At the same time, for $15 for a 24 set of markers, which makes less than 50 cents per marker, I think they could have gone way worse. The brush tip didn't fray and the markers were pretty juicy. So if you just want a cheap skin tone marker set for practicing, or if you're a beginner and don't have enough money to afford Copics or Ohuhu markers, then I would say go for it. But keep in mind, these markers are definitely not high quality. If you're looking for a set that can color dark skin, then you would probably need to buy some more markers. Or just buy some cheap colored pencils, because like you can see in my drawing, it turned out fine. Now that's it for the video. Let me know if you would like to see more reviews, or maybe even a comparison between Touchnew markers and Ohuhus. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a nice day. Bye!